Seed oil is in almost every kitchen in America right now. It's in your pantry. It might be in your fridge. And there's a good chance it's inside nearly every meal you've eaten at a restaurant this week. It's not sugar. It's not sodium. It's not even gluten. It's seed oil, and the conversation around it has absolutely exploded. Doctors are raising alarms, scientists are publishing studies, and regulators in Europe have quietly restricted the processing chemicals used to make it, chemicals that are still completely legal here in the United States. But here's the part nobody's talking about. Not all seed oil brands are the same. Some are manufactured with industrial solvents. Some have omega-6 to omega-3 ratios so imbalanced that researchers link them directly to chronic inflammation. And some, just a few, are actually made the right way. Today we're counting down the 7 seed oil brands you need to remove from your kitchen immediately. And we'll end with the 3 that are actually worth buying. Let's start with the worst offenders. Before we get into the countdown, you need to understand what we're actually dealing with, because the food industry has been very careful to obscure it. Seed oils are industrial vegetable oils extracted from seeds: canola, soybean, corn, sunflower, and safflower. They were largely absent from the human diet before the 20th century. Then, in the 1950s, they were aggressively marketed as heart-healthy alternatives to animal fats, a claim that was, in large part, funded by the very companies producing them. The American Heart Association, notably, endorsed polyunsaturated fats as part of that same mid-century dietary shift, a position the organization still largely holds today, and one that a growing body of independent researchers are actively challenging. Here's what the science actually shows. Seed oils are extraordinarily high in omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, PUFAs, as they're classified in nutritional biochemistry. In a balanced diet, you want an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio somewhere around 4:1. The average American today sits between 15:1 and 20:1, and seed oils are a primary driver of that imbalance. Studies in peer-reviewed journals have linked that ratio to elevated markers of systemic inflammation, cardiovascular disease risk, and metabolic dysfunction. And that's before we even get to how most of these oils are actually made. Most commercial seed oils go through hexane extraction, a petroleum-derived solvent used to strip oil from seeds at industrial scale. The European Union has restricted hexane residue limits in food products far more aggressively than the FDA. In some categories, EU regulations are 10 times stricter. In the United States, hexane residues fall under the FDA's GRAS system, generally recognized as safe, a classification framework governing food additives and processing aids that, for hexane in edible oils, hasn't been meaningfully updated since the 1970s. Now, with that established, let's count them down. Number 7. Crisco vegetable oil, manufactured by the J.M. Smucker Company. Crisco is one of the oldest names in American cooking, and one of the most misleading. Their flagship vegetable oil is a soybean oil blend, and soybeans are among the highest omega-6 crops in existence. Crisco Standard Oil carries an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 7:1, already 2 to 3 times above the recommended ceiling. But the bigger issue is how it's refined. Crisco vegetable oil goes through full industrial refining, degumming, bleaching, and deodorization at high heat. That process destroys any naturally occurring antioxidants, including tocopherols, the vitamin E compounds responsible for oil stability, creates oxidation byproducts, and, according to food chemistry researchers, generates small amounts of trans fat-like compounds, even in oils officially labeled 0 grams trans fat. That's because FDA rounding rules allow up to half a gram per serving to be listed as 0. Crisco built its brand on Crisco shortening, which was, until 2007, one of the most trans fat-laden products in the American food supply. They reformulated. But the underlying oil chemistry hasn't fundamentally changed. Keep it off your shelf. Number 6. Wesson Canola Oil. Wesson is the best-selling canola oil brand in the United States, which means it's worth spending a moment on canola specifically, because it has perhaps the most effective marketing makeover in food history. Canola oil was developed in the 1970s from rapeseed, a plant that, in its natural form, contains erucic acid, a long-chain fatty acid compound toxic to humans in large quantities. Through selective breeding, food scientists lowered the erucic acid content to what's considered a safe level and renamed it canola, a portmanteau of Canada and oil. Wesson Canola's omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is approximately 2:1, which sounds reasonable on paper. But here's the real issue with Wesson: instability under heat. Every cooking oil has a smoke point, the temperature at which it begins to break down and produce harmful compounds, and canola oil's smoke point is deceptively misunderstood. While canola oil has a relatively high smoke point on paper, it has low oxidative stability, meaning the PUFAs in it degrade well before it visibly smokes. When you heat it to cooking temperatures, it produces oxidative byproducts, including a compound called 4-hydroxynonenal, which food safety researchers have flagged as a potential contributor to neurological disease with repeated exposure. A study published from the University of the Basque Country found that canola oil heated to frying temperatures generated that compound at levels of concern. Wesson uses standard hexane extraction and full refining, stripping out the tocopherols and vitamin E that provide what little natural stability the oil had. If you're going to use canola at all, the brand matters enormously. Wesson is not the one. Number 5. Mazola corn oil. Corn oil is perhaps the most omega-6 dominant oil on this entire list. Mazola corn oil carries an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 46 to 1. Read that again. 46 to 1 against a recommended target of 4 to 1. The linoleic acid content of corn oil, the specific omega-6 PUFA that drives this imbalance, is among the highest of any commercially available cooking fat. And when that linoleic acid is heated and oxidizes, it produces what researchers now call OXLAMs, oxidized linoleic acid metabolites. OXLAMs are an emerging area of serious concern in nutritional biochemistry, with studies linking their accumulation to tissue inflammation and metabolic damage at the cellular level. Mazola has, in recent years, actively marketed their corn oil as heart-healthy, citing a single clinical study funded by the Corn Refiners Association, a Washington, D.C.-based industry trade group that represents the interests of corn processing companies. Food safety advocates and independent researchers have criticized that marketing heavily, pointing out that the comparison baseline was cherry-picked, that the study didn't measure inflammation markers, and that the funder had a direct financial interest in the outcome. The FDA has not approved a heart health claim for corn oil. The marketing language Mazola uses exists in a regulatory gray zone. If you see Mazola in your kitchen, it's time for it to go. Number 4. Happy Belly Vegetable Oil, Amazon's store brand. Amazon's private label food line has become one of the highest volume cooking oil sellers in the country, and it makes sense. It's cheap, it's Prime eligible, and it's positioned as a pantry staple. What you're actually getting is soybean oil, fully industrially processed, at a price point that reflects every cost-cutting measure taken in between. The concern with Happy Belly isn't that it's uniquely dangerous compared to the others on this list. It's that it's dangerously normalized. Millions of households are adding this to their cart on autopilot, not reading the label, because the label says vegetable oil and that sounds neutral. It isn't. The omega-6 content of soybean oil sits at roughly 54% of total fat, making it one of the highest linoleic acid oils commercially available. When you cook with it, that linoleic acid oxidizes and produces OXLAMs, and chronic overconsumption of those oxidized metabolites is an area of active and growing concern in nutritional biochemistry. The low price of Happy Belly reflects industrial shortcuts, not consumer value. Number 3. Filippo Berio Pure Olive Oil. This one surprises people. Filippo Berio is one of the most recognizable olive oil brands on the market, and olive oil is almost universally praised. So why is it on this list? Because of what pure olive oil actually means. Filippo Berio's pure olive oil and light olive oil products, not their extra virgin line, are refined olive oil blends. The refining process strips the oil of polyphenols, the antioxidant compounds responsible for most of olive oil's documented health benefits, and it destroys the tocopherols and vitamin E that give unrefined olive oil its oxidative stability. What you're left with is essentially a neutral cooking oil that used to be olive oil but has had its beneficial chemistry removed. And there's a deeper problem. Independent testing by food safety organizations, including the UC Davis Olive Center, has found that some mass-market olive oil, labeled as pure or extra virgin, contains adulterant seed oils, typically sunflower or canola, blended in to reduce cost. Filippo Berio has faced scrutiny in those tests before. If you're buying olive oil for health reasons, the label pure or light is a red flag, not a reassurance. Number 2. Hellmann's Canola Oil. Hellmann's canola oil is marketed explicitly as a healthy cooking choice. The label reads, made with 100% canola oil, 0 grams trans fat, good source of omega-3 ALA. That last claim is where the food safety alarm bells go off. ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, is a plant-based omega-3 PUFA It is not the same as EPA and DHA, the marine-sourced omega-3s associated with cardiovascular and neurological benefit. The human body converts ALA to EPA and DHA at a rate of approximately 5 to 15% under optimal conditions. Most researchers consider ALA a poor substitute. Hellmann knows this. The good source of omega-3 claim is technically compliant with FDA labeling rules, but it creates the impression of a benefit that nutritional science does not broadly support. And their canola oil is fully refined with standard industrial processing, which destroys the tocopherols, the vitamin E compounds, and other antioxidants present in cold-pressed canola, along with whatever oxidative stability they provided. This is what food safety experts call a health halo product. The label is doing more work than the oil. Number 1. Crisco, again, and this time it's bigger than your kitchen. We started with Crisco at number 7. We end with Crisco at number 1, because the most important thing to understand about the seed oil problem isn't what's sitting in your pantry. It's what's in every restaurant you've eaten at this week. Studies on commercial food service purchasing consistently show that over 90% of American restaurants, from fast food chains to mid-range sit-down establishments, use industrial seed oil blends for all frying, sautéing, and cooking. Soybean oil, corn oil, canola soy blends. The dominant commercial supplier to the food service industry is, and has been for decades, Crisco's institutional product line, manufactured by the J.M. Smucker Company. This is the critical exposure most people never account for. You can be meticulous at home, buying only the right oils, cooking clean, and still be consuming seed oils and the OX lambs they generate under high heat at every restaurant meal you eat. And here's the kicker. In the European Union, the maximum permitted hexane residue level in edible fats and oils is 1 milligram per kilogram. The US FDA has no equivalent enforceable limit for most applications under its GRAS framework. The processing chemicals used to extract the oil at the foundation of the American restaurant industry are subject to stricter regulation in Europe than they are here. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's a regulatory gap, and the food industry has had no incentive to close it. Now, the 3 brands worth buying. First, Kasandrinos extra virgin olive oil. Cold-pressed, single origin from Greece. Third-party tested for purity and polyphenol content. Kasandrinos consistently passes independent adulteration testing and carries a polyphenol content high enough to deliver the anti-inflammatory benefits that olive oil is actually known for. The smoke point of extra virgin olive oil is lower than refined oils, so use it for low to medium heat cooking and dressings. And don't use any olive oil, even this one, for high heat frying. Second, Chosen Foods avocado oil. Avocado oil is one of the few plant-based oils with a fatty acid profile that doesn't create an omega-6 PUFA crisis. It's predominantly oleic acid, the same monounsaturated fat found in olive oil, rather than linoleic acid, which means far less oxlam formation under heat. Chosen Foods is one of a small number of brands independently verified for avocado oil purity, because yes, avocado oil adulteration is also a documented problem. Their refined avocado oil has a high smoke point, genuine heat stability, and a neutral flavor profile that works for nearly any cooking application. Third, Primal Kitchen avocado oil. Founded by Mark Sisson of the Primal Nutrition community, Primal Kitchen's avocado oil undergoes third-party testing and is certified through California Avocado Commission quality standards. It's widely available at Whole Foods, Costco, and Amazon. It's more expensive than industrial seed oils, and that's exactly the point. The price reflects actual quality control. The seed oil debate isn't fringe anymore. It's on the floor of Congress. It's in functional medicine clinics. It's in the mainstream conversation in a way it wasn't 5 years ago. Even the American Heart Association's long-standing endorsement of polyunsaturated fats is now being scrutinized in peer-reviewed literature in ways that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. What the science shows, stripped of the marketing, is this. The oils you cook with determine, in large part, the ratio of inflammatory to anti-inflammatory compounds in your body. The PUFAs in these industrial oils and the oxalams they generate when heated are tilting that ratio in the wrong direction for most Americans. You can't control what restaurants use, but you can control what comes into your home. Remove the 7, stock the 3, and if you know someone who's still cooking with vegetable oil without understanding what that actually means, share this video with them. We'll see you in the next one.